Alright, so sort of a prequel or a precursor to this video was this poll I released a few days ago and then subsequently deleted and rewrote in a little bit more clear way regarding flight time and drone weight. And I guess the first time I released a poll, it was, I guess people were saying it was somewhat vague as to what I was talking about. Well, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about in this video if you watch the whole thing. But I'm primarily looking at pilots that mainly fly Cinewhoops and ultralight long-range quads like 4-inch or 5-inch, and sort of people targeting like that 250-gram limit, and what drone weight will do to your flight time and how much of an effect it'll have. Obviously, according to the poll here, I wanted to get sort of a crowd-sourced knowledge base here of what people would think would happen. And of course, over 90% of people said that if you reduce the weight of the drone, assuming the battery is the same and you're not really changing the design of the frame too much, you're going to get more flight time. I think that's fairly obvious to most people. Now, not everyone agreed. About 8% of you said it'll stay the same, and in some cases, the flight time might even decrease. So, I am curious, in what situations, and I want you guys to be specific in your comment, what specific situations will you have flight time decrease instead of increase? When you apply some of the techniques here, some of the things that I've done in this video in terms of reducing the drone weight. So I'm really curious about that. Let me know what those specific scenarios are and how often do you think that people might run into those scenarios? Because I think that if you just take off dead weight, you're going to get more flight time. And in this specific example for this drone and what I did here, in this exact scenario, the flight time did go up, and it went up by quite a bit. I'm not going to spoil the surprise. I'll explain more at the end of the video. And if you obviously want the proof of the full flight, will be linked in the video description for those of you guys that don't believe. But basically, just take a look at the stuff I did in this video and see if you could apply it to some other drones and see what your results might be. And then if you think that these techniques applied in this situation, similar flight characteristics, similar flight conditions, the flight time will go down. I would like to know why you think that specifically. And let me know that in the comments. Okay, so before we get into the video, I just want to let you guys know that this is a sponsored video by Insta360. And I'm going to be talking about a special gift that you can get with the Insta360 Go 2 with my link. I'll talk more about that at the end of the video. So when I made my review video on the Diatone Taycan C25 MK2, it's a mouthful. So you can see here, I haven't really done much with it since then. Some of the downsides of the model is that it's pretty heavy with 2 cameras and just a lot of extra stuff in here for protection, etc. And so the goal of this video here is to show you how to reduce the weight of your bind and fly models. Obviously, if you're doing your own builds, you're going to obviously put on what you want or not want. In this case, there's a lot of stuff on here that you can probably get rid of and still get the same performance or better, and also have longer flight times. And that's the goal of reducing your drone weight, is to get longer flight times. So that's what we're going to do here in this video. And I just want to show you before we get started how much this drone weighs. I think it was around 150 grams. And yep, just a little over 150 grams, almost 151 grams. And this is without battery on here or any of the cameras. That's how we're going to basically strip it down. For something of a similar class in terms of a 2.5-inch Cinewhoop, like the GPRC Cinelog 25, comes in around 128, 130 grams, and for similar prop size. So I'm going to try and see if we can get the weight down in that range. one thing to note is when the Diatone sent me the model here, they gave me a thinner battery plate here, which we're going to replace. So they sent me a replacement battery plate. I think it's maybe a 0.5 millimeter thicker, and that's because I think on crashes this thinner plate here would break and the battery would pop off. So they on all the models they're making now have the updated battery plate. Okay, so just a quick look at the model, and I'm going to just sort of talk about what kinds of things you can remove that you might not need, and this could apply to other bind and fly models as well. So for example, right off the bat, these little carbon plates here on the bottom, they don't really do a whole lot in terms of protecting the prop. I think that I would rather not have this weight, and if the prop breaks on landing, it breaks, and I would just sort of pre-plan where my flight is going to go and also where I'm going to land, and maybe have a landing pad, because removing this weight here is probably going to increase your flight time and give you better flying characteristics without the prop thrust being blocked by these little pieces of carbon that don't really protect the prop that much. Alright, so this is what it looks like without the prop guards on the bottom, and of course, also removing the screws. So let's see how much things weigh now that the prop guards are gone, or those little protectors on the bottom. So 151-ish grams down to about 143.5 grams. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the rear camera mount, and then I'm going to get rid of the peanut camera mount because I don't have a peanut anymore. I'm going to move this the go-to camera mount to the front, and then we're not going to have anything on the back here. Alright, so I moved the back camera mount to the front, and I removed that other mount here. I'm going to probably put this piece of carbon back here in the back and temporarily remove the center plate. The other thing that I removed is the small Lollipop 3 antenna, as well as the SMA to micro FL connector, and the little TPU part that was holding this in the back. So all this was in the back over here, so it's a lot of extra weight that I don't feel is really necessary, because I'm not going to be flying super far away with something of this size. So I just put just a standard whip antenna here with a micro FL connector onto the video transmitter. It's just going to pop out here in the back somewhere like this. Should have pretty decent video range. I don't think it's going to change the video range as much, and I'd rather have the lower weight. So I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the parts back on here, and then we'll get a weight measurement. Alright, so I got the center plate back in there, as well as these little two front and rear plates. Use the shorter screws back here because there's no mount in the back here, and I have the VTX antenna coming through this gap between the center plate and this back plate. So it should be fine in terms of video reception. I don't think I'll have any issues there. Basically the same camera mount here in the front. I think you could get this a little bit lighter with some proprietary parts, but I'm not going to get into that here because the weight savings is probably not worth hunting down proprietary part for that, or some sort of custom 3D printed part. And this is probably going to be pretty low in weight now, so let's see how much we've reduced it. So yeah, now we're down in the range of the GetRC Cinelog 25, at least for the analog version. This is obviously all analog, so I'm trying to make a sort of apples to apples comparison. 126 grams. Now, to save just a couple more grams, you can take off these screws here. So you don't need 4 here for each motor. You can probably get away with 2 on each motor because you're not really bashing this around. So go ahead and I'll take those off, and then you can also probably take off the screws for the props if the prop doesn't spin. So let's see if there's enough friction there on the prop to the prop shaft. Alright, so I took the 2 screws off the prop, and it does spin a little bit, but it's not like it's going to fall off. So for me, it's worth the little bit of prop spinning on there for not having the weight. So I'm going to actually go ahead and remove all the prop screws, because this is a pusher, not a puller. So the prop gets pushed into the motor instead of getting pulled away from it, so it's less likely to pop off. Alright, so I ended up removing the two side screws. This is the front here. So front and back screws on all the motors, and I did tighten them down a little bit. I don't really expect any problems, and I went ahead and I removed all the prop screws as well, and you can see it doesn't really slip that much. We'll see how it does in flight. I don't expect any problems. I've done this mod on a lot of models before. Alright, so now pretty much stripped all the way down. So we've gone from about 126 grams to about 123.5 grams. So about 3 grams savings by getting rid of the screws, and a total reduction in weight from about 151 grams down to 123 grams. So these are the kinds of things you can try and do on your drones. Just basically try and get rid of anything that you don't absolutely need in the drone for it to fly and to fly properly. Obviously, you're going to be giving up some durability to save some weight and get more flight time. So that's the trade-off you're going to have to make. But that's sort of the idea behind doing this video, is to sort of give you an idea of what the kinds of things to look for when you want to get the weight of your drone down to as low as possible. So I do want to thank the sponsor of this video, Insta360. They do want me to mention that the Insta360 Go 2 has a special promotion through my link. So it depends on when you are watching this video. They kind of rotate the specials that come with my particular link. So if you have to get it through the Insta360 store and not through some other store. Sometimes they'll give you a free ND filter. Sometimes they'll be a lens guard. Sometimes it'll be 10% off, or some combination of the three. I think if you use my link back, I think it was at the end of last year, at the end of around 2020, December 2020, they offered all three. It was 10% off, plus the ND filter set, plus the lens guard set. So that was a pretty good deal back then, but they are rotating that now throughout 2022. So it really depends on when you watch this video. So click on the link, see which free gift you're going to get with this one. It includes either the 32 gigabyte version or the 64 gigabyte version. And I wouldn't have taken this sponsorship with Insta360 unless I really like this camera. And this is one of my go-to cameras. Haha, no pun intended. Go-to cameras for a lot of these sort of lighter cinema, because it is about 27 grams. Good enough video quality, very nice stabilization. It's a decent image quality for things like Instagram, Facebook, social media. Obviously, if you're looking for, that 4K high quality video, you're gonna need like a naked GoPro or something like that. But that's a whole different ball of wax. And for most people that just want casual video, this camera is going to be good enough in my opinion. All right, so before I show you the flight footage, I want to go over the data here on what changed. So previously, the drone weighed 269 grams. That was with all of the parts that were on it, camera mounts, including the extra weight of the rear camera, or the second camera. The camera that I removed here was the Caddx Peanut. So the overall weight with the battery went from 269 grams to 214 grams, so a reduction of about 20%. Now the drone weight without the cameras and the battery was 151 grams. And then once I stripped everything down, as you saw in the video, it was about 123 grams, which is a reduction of about 18% in weight. And this is how I flew it here. Same battery. It's the same 660 milliamp hour 4-cell battery that I flew in the first video, which again will be linked in the video description if you want to see that flight. It's about 3.5 minutes if you want to go check it out. And then in this case, I'm using the Go 2 in the front. And this is exactly how I'm flying it, along with all the modifications I made in the video. And I'll show you a little bit of the flight here, but then I'll have the full flight, which is kind of long, 7 minutes long. I'll be linked down in the video description.